Welcome to Home Dad Chat, brought to you by the National At-Home Dad Network. My name is Brock,
My name is Danny.
and we are here to talk about life as stay-at-home dads. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
No, I don't want much. I even love handmade crafts made of macaroni. Come on now, you should know me. Sometimes I might eat too much. No worry about the weight, got the dad bod rocking on me. Sketches on my feet. Cargo shorts look good on me. I'm a dad, that's what I do.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Hope you're doing great. We've made it back to the microphone again to have a fun conversation with you. Danny, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Doing fantastic, actually. Getting ready for spring in about 6 months. So, yeah.
I like that you say 6 months instead of 6 weeks. That's perfect.
You only get 6 days here. No, but it's actually been fantastic. The weather has been amazing. I actually was planning on going yesterday to a hike locally. There's just a group of hikers that'll get together, and then it's just only like 2-3 miles, but rolling hills through the parks and things like that. And I hate to say it like this, but it was too nice. I walked outside and I went, no, I got to get the kids out here today. It was wet and, muddy and everything, but still
Yeah.
just to get out. And we drew stuff on the driveway with chalk and stuff like that. I mean, it was just for February, it was a beautiful day, and it was just incredible. And like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all three were like amazing. So we had a lot of time to get outside. And I have to say, and I'm telling my kids this all the time, sunlight, vitamin D is incredibly important. And I could just tell the difference in my kids.
Yeah.
They weren't like depressed or anything beforehand, but they were definitely worn. And they just kind of, oh yeah, I feel better now. Okay, I can go. And all three of them got up and went to school today, no complaints. And I thank the sunshine.
You melted the cave troll off of them all.
I think so.
I think that's how that works. So yeah, well, that's great, man. Yeah, it's been seasonably warm here too. So I think that's been the case for a lot of places. So hopefully everybody's gotten a chance to get out and enjoy some of that for a little while.
Outside. Yeah.
I've taken advantage recently of the fact that my oldest is 13 and responsible enough to leave at home to be able to go on walks with my wife in the neighborhood. So did that. But even too, to be able to go on dates from time to time too. A friend of mine came up with a really cool idea where basically it's like, you know what, like we don't need to pay for a babysitter. You guys are old enough and responsible enough. We can leave you at home for a few hours to go do something. And as long as the report from both of you comes back that there wasn't any issues, then we will reward you as such. And so the kids each get $10 if that's the case. They don't work together in the fashion of like, oh, we got to do this so that we can get the $10, because one will rat the other one out. So a nice little cover there. But it's been great because, last week I got to take Corey out for Valentine's Day early. So that was cool. Yeah. So I got to do a little Valentine's Day date, which was awesome. And then we celebrated him turning 13. So he's a Valentine's Day baby. So it just kind of worked out that way. But yeah, it's an interesting, kind of hit like sort of a little bit of a new stage in life there. And it's nice.
And for all those parents out there whose kids are too young to be doing this, it's coming. Okay, it's coming. You just keep plodding on. I know it sucks right now, but you will get there. And honestly, for a lot of our at-home parents, it may not be that you want to spend time with your partner when you first get a chance to get out on yourself. And we respect that. We respect that. Because you need that self-care. A lot of times includes, I got to go somewhere where nobody needs me. Nobody wants me. Nobody's asking anything of me. I'm not responsible for you. And it's amazing how demanding that is on a daily basis. And also, of course, that first couple times, even for me, and I'm incredibly extroverted, I didn't have anywhere to go and I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
I was by myself. I mean, that was just it. Cause it is, your circle gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then I'm like, I have no real like friends that I can just, hey, let's go to the park or whatever, go see. No, I got nothing.
Well, the other thing that we did too is with the fact that we've gotten to know our neighbors over the years is, we've we'll like text them, be like, hey, like we're gonna go do this. The kids are gonna be at home, like, and they understand where things are as well. So we've basically invited them into like our parenting village on things for like if
Mhm.
there's an emergency type situation, that type of deal. And so we're like, hey, like,
Yeah.
are you guys gonna be at home? And so that way the kids know, hey, okay, I can reach out to this person if I really need to. So that's another just kind of nice little extra added benefit to the whole thing. So, but yeah, I
Mhm.
think speaking to the younger parents for sure, just start working now on building different things of responsibility into your kids. They're not too young to
No.
know what that looks like. Just even the littlest of things is a step in the right direction. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think that that's great. The other thing too that's been going on is a connection with some of the dads who their kids are friends with my kids,
Mhm.
and that's been interesting because we always talk about you need a men's group and you need a mentor, and I feel like in a way like I I'm kind of becoming a mentor to some of these guys just unofficially because they'll be like, hey, like I know you asked for so and so to come over and hang out with your kids, but I'm dealing with
Mhm.
this and it's really frustrating. And like they're just telling you about it. And I'm just like, I get it, man. Like, and just being able to like have that moment where it's like, it's okay for you to be frustrated with this or, going through this situation. Like, I,
Right.
I totally get that. And just being able to come alongside them for that. Or when we did Kaya's birthday on Friday because they had the day off of school for teacher in service. And one of the dads,
Mhm.
he didn't really ask to stay. And I never told any of the parents that they had to stay, but he was just like he wanted to hang out, and you could just tell it was like I'm just gonna stay here and hang out, and we're just gonna talk. And I never made a big deal about it. And he hung out here at the house for the entire time while the party was going on. And the kids were downstairs playing video games, and he and I were upstairs talking. And we got into some deeper conversations as the day went on. And I think that it's I didn't expect that. I actually had other things planned to do, but I set all those on the side to be able to just take the time to talk to this guy, get to know him a little bit better. And
Yeah.
he's a pastor at a local church here in town, and so
Cool.
just I,
Got a lot in common then.
look, yeah, definitely. And also too, like pastors a lot of times like they have a hard time making friends because it's just like you you don't know, is this somebody that's just hanging out with me because they want something, or are they like truly wanting to have a friendship? Like what's that look
Mhm.
like? And
Yeah,
and
they're
I
there for your services, or they
right.
actually care. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
I'm sure, are people willing to really open up with you as just a
Yes.
person and not a pastor and be like, yeah, I don't know. I watched this game and the blankety blank. Oh, I cussed. I'm sorry, sir. Give me a Hail Mary or something. And the reality of that, no, no, I'm just a dude right now with
Right.
kids. I'd like to talk about how we can to do this better.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what was transpiring, and it was just really good. But it was, the one dad I was talking about though that like was texting me. I was just like, man, like you have my number. If you need to reach out and you need to get something off your chest, it's there for that. Like it's
Mhm.
okay. I'm not gonna brush you off.
Right.
Like just kind of letting them know like that there is other dads out there, and I think that falls in line a lot with what we're going to be talking about today on the podcast with our guest, because we're going to have Kevin Seldon coming on. We've talked about having him on the show for a little while now, and finally we're able to get the stars to align correctly.
Hmm.
One of the big hiccups, of course, is time zones. So
Yep.
with
We're
being
all in
with
different
him,
time zones.
yeah, with us being on the East Coast, East Coast, you're West, or sorry, you're Central, and then he's West Coast. Like it's just all the time zones there, except for
Hmm.
Mountain getting involved. But we're gonna have Kevin on to talk about his new book, which is what I was getting into. That matches well with what we're talking about with dads trying to connect with other dads. He wrote a book called The DILF, which is based off of his podcast that he started a while back, and basically the book is dad it's a dad I'd like to friend handbook. Just
Friend,
and he's
y'all. Friend.
friend. Yes, there it is. But no, it's just to
Not the other one.
overcome, he's just trying to overcome the most common myths of parenthood. And I think that that is definitely something that needs to be tackled for
Hmm.
sure. So we'll be back here in just a moment with Kevin Seldon and talk about his new book and any other adventures he's got going on in his life. Become a member of the National At-Home Dad Network, an organization focused on providing advocacy, community, education, and support, connecting with households where dad is the primary caregiver of the children. We do this through our webinar and podcast series, mental health support groups, regular online social events, as well as our annual convention. The National At-Home Dad Network is a 100% volunteer organization. Without the generous support of its members and the community around it, we would not be able to continue the work that we do. Becoming a member gives you access to past convention speaker presentations, the ability to vote for board members annually, and ensures that the organization's fees and bills are in positive standing. Oh yeah, it should not go unmentioned that there is some cool swag headed your way if you decide to become a member. For only $35 a year, your membership provides you with the exclusive content only we can generate, and you'll be supporting an organization that benefits families all around the country and world. By advocating for them, offering them community, providing education and guidance, and supporting them to grow in their parenthood journey. And one last thing, if you contribute $500 or more, you will become a lifetime member. Not only will you receive everything already mentioned, but also a certificate recognizing your status and an exclusive National At-Home Dad Network challenge coin with our trademark logo, Dads Don't Babysit. So, what are you waiting for? Become a member today. Hey everybody, we're right back at it again, and we have our guest with us, Kevin Seldon. Kevin, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for getting up before the rooster crows out there in the West Coast. I know it's super early for you right now.
It is. My son is usually up way before me, and everyone is still sleeping, so it's a very quiet house, which
Well, hey, enjoy it. You know, it's one of those few things where you get to wake up and it's just
Right.
quiet for a little while. But I'm glad
That's
that you
good.
took some time to come on and talk with us. So I'm very excited to discuss your book. But before we get into that, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit. You and I have been conversing back and forth for, just a little over a year now, I think, or something
Yeah.
like that. And there's been a lot going on. You know, you and I got introduced because of City Dads groups and some of the things going on with that organization and Fathering Together. And it was just an interesting thing of like people telling me about you. And I think the same way like people were telling you about me, and was like, all right, like let's get together and chat. What exactly transpired in you getting connected with Fathering Together and City Dads group and that sort of side of things for you this past year?
Yeah. So about 6 years ago, I guess I should back up even more. About over a decade ago, I've always wanted to be a dad, and my wife and I decided even before a decade ago to start a family, and we could not get pregnant. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And it tore me apart, but I never really took the time to allow myself any space, to think about that, because I was all her and making sure she was okay. And then after 5 years, we got pregnant. It was a very tumultuous birth and pregnancy. And my son was in the NICU and, all that stuff. I got home from the hospital and I did not recognize myself. And I'm sure we'll get into all of that later. But I decided quickly that the best thing I could do was take a year off and walk away from the company that I had started from scratch and become a stay-at-home dad for the year, because I didn't want my son to meet me in that state that I was. I didn't recognize myself. I was a mess. I was having panic attacks. And I just, the struggles of 5 years of trying to get something and failing miserably, can take its toll, especially when you don't think about your own feelings for that whole period. So I started a podcast called DILF, Dad I'd Like to Friend. And I had never listened to a podcast before. And it was really just an avenue for me to meet other dads, because I couldn't find any support anywhere. I couldn't find any dad groups. The mom groups rejected. And this is a long about answer, but I started the podcast. It took off, to my surprise. And then when I realized how many dads were also struggling, I decided to turn it into a nonprofit. So I launched Dad Supporting Dads, and we started to build a movement, of dads really having one another's back because it's prevalent culture. And then I realized that the problem was bigger than just dads, that moms through surrogacy and adoption were having actually more similar experiences to dads than they were to other birthing moms. And the same thing in the LGBTQ plus community. So we expanded the nonprofit into something called All Parents Welcome, about creating support systems for all parents, not just birthing moms. And that doesn't mean that birthing moms don't need even more support, but how can we support them as their partners if we don't have any support for ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And through that experience, I met Brian Anderson, who was running Fathering Together at the time. And then I also met, a bunch of people through the City Dads Group team. I was already a member of LA Dads Group, which wasn't extremely active, but was around in LA. And through all of this, it just kind of became apparent that the broader vision of what we were creating was something that Fathering Together kind of fit in beautifully with, that we needed to build more support for dads, but that maybe we needed a different angle, than what was presently happening. And City Dads Group by that point had become a part of Fathering Together, but it was kind of a confusing territory for a lot of the leaders, in the group and how it was all fitting together. And I really, my vision was to create a larger organization that could create resources for dads like yourselves to do even more powerful work with what they were already, right? Like not to take over from Cincinnati Dads Group and all the hard work that Brock has been doing, but to create more resources for him through that, right? And also to kind of relinquish the control that some people want in this world over others and kind of say, no, Brock, I'm taking off your handcuffs. Like, you don't need my permission to create a Cincinnati Dads Group logo. You know what I mean? It's your group and we will provide you with resources, but it's your group,
Mm-hmm.
and especially if it's volunteer led, it didn't really make sense the way a lot of things were being structured, especially in a world that, many would view dads and men in general as enemy number one. So, we need to find a way to support and reposition this very outdated mentality that men have no interest in the upbringing of their children, which is the first myth in the book, right? And in doing that, we needed to kind of rejuvenate City Dads Group, which had, only a few, there was a lot of people, just to be blunt, there was a lot of cities on that map, but only a very few were active, right? So we started slow. And when we realized that we could use the DILF audience to kind of rejuvenate and bring in more dads and younger dads that were interested in working hard in cities and bring more support to the dads that, who are not older dads, but who have been doing it a bit longer, right? And bring them more support, we realized, hey, we could actually put all these pieces together into one larger nonprofit organization, Dads Supporting Dads, and build something very cool that is not just covering one city, there's stroller clubs, in Brooklyn, there's a bunch of support groups in individual cities, but actually create something that builds a movement across the country.
Well, and I was curious too. So you mentioned dads supporting dads, and I'm a big person on TikTok for just scrolling and looking at things. And there seems to be a lot of dads on there who are posting with that hashtag dad supporting dads. Is that connected to what you've created? Is that part of that? Like, I'm just trying to figure out how those connect together.
It's definitely its own movement at this point, but yes, I believe it. We kind of launched that movement through some of the dads that were just involved in our organization. And just through putting that hashtag, it was very organic if you go back to its origins, right? Just dads inspiring one another and talking about supporting one another. And then slowly but surely it became a very viral hashtag. I think that it's, like any viral hashtag, it's not always used in the most proper way. Some people are using it to try and get money, which was not the intention. But I think the pure vision of the hashtag is still there, which is just about us having one another's back and realizing that if we don't support one another, we can't really support anyone else.
Yeah, definitely. is the DILF podcast, is that still like, are you still doing that? Or did you hand that off to somebody? What's going on with the podcast?
We paused so in the second season, we hit number 6 on the charts, on the US parenting charts, which is really cool. But I slowly started to realize that we could only do so much with the podcast. So that's when I started, writing the book, and we paused the podcast so I could write the book. And now we'll be coming back for a third season and delving a little deeper into each of the myths we discuss in the book in the third season.
Nice.
And then one other thing with TikTok, you'll notice if you go on TikTok, we have a TikTok page. We started it. We've never posted on it. I'm not a big TikToker. To be very blunt, I abhor social media. I think it's something that very much creates a comparison game and a false sense of confidence and reality. And I don't think it helps us to be deeper engaged with our family. As you sit there trying to get your kid to do something cute for the camera in order to get likes, I don't know that it benefits anyone really, but it is a way to get the word out. So because of the hashtag, we started a TikTok channel, and we already have like over 1,000 followers, and we've never posted it. But because of the book, I'm getting a lot of pressure to do some videos. So we'll be talking about some of the myths and doing that through TikTok. And we have a few influencers who want to do a TikTok shop with the book. So we'll be launching that, within the year, along with the audio book and the hardback that are coming short.
Nice.
Definitely. I like that. Well, and that's the thing too, like you talk about the myths in the book. And so let's get into a little bit of the book itself. You got 10 different myths in the book. I think that you hit on some very poignant things that go on when becoming a dad and through the life of parenthood in itself. Do you feel like you have a favorite of one of those myths that you are more drawn to talk about when you get around a group of dads?
It's interesting you say that. And thank you for mentioning that throughout the parenting journey, because I think there's, I was very surprised. I wrote the book for new and expected dads, and I was very surprised at how many dads 10 years into their journey felt such a connection to the book, and even, a lot of moms, because I think that once you get past the paternity leave is unnecessary myth and some of those early myths, you start to realize that 8 of the 10 themes are very much a part of your existence as a parent, and it's important to be reminded and have something to come back to. But one of the myths that I think is such an important one to discuss for new dads in particular is this myth that you will feel an instant bond with your baby. And the reason I think it is such a crucial freaking myth is because I think it creates a lot of shame for a lot of men who are terrified to even admit that to themselves. And it starts this very dangerous cycle from the very beginning that you are doing something wrong, that you are not good enough, and that you cannot open up and talk about these feelings with anyone because of the shame that you are not feeling what you should be feeling.
Right. And that would push you further out of being a caregiver, because you're thinking, no, I'm already screwing this up. I don't want to screw it up more.
To be more true, Danny. Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a good point.
And to top off what you just said, like, to push you not only away from being a caregiver and actively engaged dad, but also being a strong co-parent. And as you know, in the beginning of the book, we redefine the term co-parent, because why should you have to be divorced or separated in order to be co-parents, to have equal responsibility? So on the home front. So we are kind of taking back that term. All of us are, if you are with your partner, if you are not with your partner, the point is, if you have a child and you are raising them with someone else, regardless of your relationship status, you are co-parents. Right. And as co-parents, starting with that shame, it's going to push you farther away from your partner if you're feeling the shame that you can't talk about. Right? So just kind of normalizing it in that chapter, I talk a lot about the years of struggles, and I talk a lot about something called PMADS, which I'm sure we'll get into. But, perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, they say that it affects 1 in 10 dads, but research shows that it could actually be 1 in 4 dads, and most dads aren't ever even interviewed. So we don't know about the struggle of dads, which is why All Parents Welcome is partnering with NYU on the first ever research study on non-birthing parents. So on dads, on moms through surrogacy and adoption, and really trying to see what the experiences are of non-birthing parents, because absurdly, we haven't ever been asked. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that a lot of dads feel is we're expected to be there for the family unit, but no one has ever really asked us how we're doing. And there's not really many studies. I think it's time we have some data to show. And someone mentioned to me and suggested that I had postpartum depression when we first had my son. And I was slapped in the face, and it was from a mom that was disgusted that I would even suggest that I had struggles. And in no way was I trying to take anything away from anyone, but that didn't mean that I wasn't always also struggling. And I feel like when you talk about postpartum depression, you must also talk about postpartum anxiety, and that's not included within the equation for many. And so many moms and dads experience that. And I think that by disregarding the struggles of one, it doesn't do any better for the other. No. Right?
Yeah.
So I was struggling, and we could talk more about PMADs later, but I think a lot of that came from that initial feeling that, oh, who is this thing coming out of my wife? And realizing that this disconnection I felt, there was nothing to be shameful about it. That connection is formed from time put in, but I needed to basically get the baby off my wife's boob so that I could have some bonding time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you heard about the Scott Galloway interview that happened recently.
No.
Mm-mm. No. What about it?
He mentioned recently in an interview that he thinks paternity leave is a joke and completely unnecessary. And he also talks about how he doesn't even think men should be in the room when the baby's born. It's disgusting. And he says some shocking things, and just a very out of touch mentality, I think, with a lot of dads. And I think my biggest issue is the concept that, like, this misconception that paternity leave is just about supporting your partner. That is a big part of it, but it's also about learning to be a team, and it's learning how to evolve into this new identity that you have as a parent, that when you don't take paternity leave, you don't have time to adjust to, and that can cause a lot of problems, and just like this myth of you will never feel like you will feel an instant bond with your baby. I think there's a lot of things that go into this shame and anxiety that happens during the perinatal period, from the moment you learn that you're expecting to the end of that first year, that creates an energy for a lot of dads that goes on for decades.
Yeah.
And you find yourself on antidepressants with a 10-year-old, and you don't know how it started. And a lot of it all stems from that perinatal period, and we don't ever talk.
Mm-hmm. And it makes a lot of sense too. Men in general have for generations not been allowed to have emotions, have been ridiculed when they talk about how they feel, have been ridiculed when they do anything that's soft. And a lot of times we see there's just a kind of unspoken pressure to, wait, you're taking parenting leave? Why? What? Your wife's fine. Let's just, there wasn't any issues or whatever. Just go back to work. And it's that expectation, especially like peer pressure, your coworkers and things like that. Like, no, you'll be back in a couple of days, right? I get 6 weeks or whatever FMLA want to give you. And the fact that so many dads are pressured that they don't take it, even though it's absolutely, it's there for them. It's part of their, I guess, benefits package for being in that job. And they just feel too much pressure. Like, no, that I need to be back at work. This is my responsibility. When, as you brought out, the reality of it is everything about us wants us to be a caregiver. We want to be there for our kid, and whatever way that can be, but being unable to even talk about it. And I can imagine how PMADS has really affected men a lot more often. Like you said, 1 in 4, was that it? Yeah.
I mean, we don't know, because there hasn't been research, but there's studies that show that the number could go as high as 1 in 4. And that's crazy, Yeah, I think that one thing that I think is a very important point to make is that I bring this up a lot, and it's a dramatic example, but your job won't be there on your deathbed, right? But your family hopefully will, but not if you don't show them any attention and love.
Right. Yeah. Kids spell love TIME. I mean, that's the best thing that I ever heard about.
I love that, Danny. That's great.
All they want. And that's not me. That's 1,000 other mitten dads have said it before me, but that's the reality of it, is they need your attention, your time, your focus, just to stop for 10 minutes and listen to them talk about I don't know, Roblox. I don't know whatever mind numbing thing, but you still let them do it because they're your focus for that moment. And so many times dads are pushed out of that arena or out of that area. They're not even allowed to have that type of interaction. It's, what, you're talking about your kid about Minecraft? What are you doing? Yeah. I'm interested in what my child's interested in, which can be very difficult, admittedly. Yeah, very important.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. The first episode I ever did of DILF was just like a barf of feelings that had been happening, over the past 2 years. And even then in 2020, I was talking about myths without even realizing that would be, the focus of a book. And one of the myths was that I have no interest in hearing about my wife's feelings. And that is this kind of like age-old dad joke of like, oh, my wife, my dad makes the obnoxious joke all the time, of like this lady chased her all the time. And like, that's his wife. And I'm just like, Dad, it's just so douchey and stupid. And we know it's not true because they've been together since they were 15, but it's what he feels like he has to say.
Right.
And I'm with my wife because I enjoy her company. And there is nothing wrong with being a safe space for her to talk to. And I feel like it's the same thing as your kid. Like, in order to be a safe space, you have to be someone that people feel comfortable enough opening up to. And that's what the podcast very quickly became, was a space for dads. We don't preach, we don't talk, we don't tell you how to raise your kid, just similar to the book. This is not about upbringing. There is a lot of books about that. This is about you. This is about you as a dad and your
I was gonna say, this
experience.
is one dad talking to another dad, basically, is what this book is. And I think that that is something that is missing within society big time, is the ability, to feel comfortable for two dads to talk, not about sports, not about, all this stuff that, like, the weather, that kind of thing, but to really get into
those surface combos that don't go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And really get into the deeper side of things. I mean, for me, one of the myths on here that really speaks to me is the whole number 7, you'll never have sex again. And I know that within like the National At-Home Dad Network's Discord service, like we actually built like a channel for just talking about sex life and for dads to be able to talk about both the positives and the negatives to what they're going through, and there's been some very interesting conversations in there. I mean, just to give you an idea, like there was a conversation that was happening about different products that are out there to help, just help your sex life. And I mentioned it to my wife, like, hey, like, the guys were talking about this. Would you think that this is something that we can maybe use? And we started using it, and it was amazing. Like it kind of brought us.
Don't leave us hanging. What was it? Right? What was the thing?
Was it a book?
I don't want to get into it. It's a little bit. Let's just put it this way.
Is it role play? Is it a toy?
No.
You can come on.
I'm trying to figure out how to do
here. Spell it out. Come on,
just drop it.
Let's go beyond the surface.
You really want to get deep into it.
You can edit it out later if it gets.
That's true.
So you can just I decided to remove that. So.
Well, so basically, like it was a lubricant of sorts that helps with a foreplay. Basically, is what it came down to. And so
all of a sudden, the sponsored screen stamp comes on.
Love it. Yeah,
lube joy.
Exactly. But no, like, seriously though, like it's one of those things where, even in a conversation that we had, she was like, I would love to be able to, do that, but like it's all in my head, and being able to say like, well, hey, like there's this product out here that might help with that. And then when it does, it's like it unlocks another level of your marriage and your sex life. It's just like, okay. And for me, like that whole, like, you'll never have sex again thing, like that was one thing that I had never like, I'd heard people joke about it all the time. And I'm a big proponent of when people say things that are definitely like in that sort of realm of jokiness. Like I'd never take it seriously. Honestly, it's like, oh, you'll never sleep again. Or, oh, I hope you get enough sleep before the kid. It's like, okay, like I get it. Yes, there's going to be moments. Or another big one of like, oh, good luck trying to find time to take a shower or whatever. I'm like, I've never missed a day of taking a shower because of my kids. Like,
you should stop saying that because somebody's going to punch you.
I don't care. I don't care. Bring it.
Hey, I've had that.
I know.
I've had that, Danny.
Yeah. I know.
Or if you do, it's with the baby. That was the That was the thing with these. Like, I get a shower.
Oh, I couldn't do that. I would feel like I was
holding
gonna like drop
the
that
baby.
slippery
Oh, you
pig
will.
while I was holding
You
on
will.
to it.
Absolutely, yeah. Not that I've dropped any of my kids. Swear.
I put a doggy gate on the nursery door because I was home with him that first year, just so I could go to the bathroom once in a blue moon and know that he was safe in his room.
Yes. Yes.
But what I'm getting at though, with the whole like never having sex again, I think it really comes down to having conversations. And so many times, like in the Discord server, and also too in the dad supporting dads WhatsApp community that you built, like there's been conversations in there as well about like how are you getting to have a sex life with your spouse? Like what does that look like? And for me, the one thing that I've kind of seen as this common denominator is don't wait for something to change to have this conversation about something you see going on in your relationship with your spouse. Like, because you're going to continue to just drag your feet until the point to where like you're just going to be disgruntled, both of you, one of you, whatever it is. And at that point, it's almost, in some ways, it can be too late or really quite a mountain to climb to get, over what's going on. And so I think just the idea of when you see something starting to just start having that conversation. Communication is such a key in a relationship. And if you're not willing to sit down and have those hard conversations at the beginning, they're going to become immensely harder later on down the road. And
Couldn't agree more, bro. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things with that particular myth is that concept. We debunk that myth within the first paragraph, and you'll notice that the rest of the chapter is not about sex or intimacy. It's about connection, because you're not going to have any sex or intimacy without connection.
Right.
And it's particularly for new dads, it's like if you, like most women who gave birth think their body is a factory. So obviously, like you need to understand that, everyone is, I personally am a boob guy, and it was like, those were off limits completely for me. And realizing that had nothing to do with me, and it wasn't anything I did wrong. And it was just, being able to talk to my wife and understand where she was coming from, was very eye-opening for me. And then once kind of sex was back on the table, if I'm not doing my part and my share of responsibility, and my partner is feeling completely overburdened, then why in hell would she want to lay down and be intimate? Right? If she's completely exhausted and frustrated.
Yeah.
So it's like that connection is so important. And that's one of the reasons behind one of the biggest shocks of the book was how many non-parents have been buying the book. And like we hit the #1 on the fatherhood charts, which I was not,
nice.
I was happy about
on
Amazon's fatherhood charts. Thank you. And it was really cool. But what I didn't expect was to hit in, like we hit in parenting, emotions, and feelings. But when we started to get a lot of people in relationships who are not actually even having kids resonating with the book, it's all because of that chapter. The concept of the weekly business meetings, we talk about that, and it's not revolutionary. But if you have one day a week where and we structure out the meeting for you, but where you have this meeting and you talk about all the bullshit, but you also, aside from just scheduling, you talk about, you compliment each other to get your guards down, and you move on to having a moment to talk about whatever's frustrating you from that week, and the other person has to completely close their lips and allow you that space. You get out so much stuff in that one day for that weekly business meeting that it allows the other 6 days to actually connect and actually be together without these responsibilities. And
well, as my wife always says, that too, is that like you got to remember that with women, you have to engage their mind sexually, because if you can't get them to like do that, then you're going to have a very difficult time getting them to physically engage.
Most women need a lot more focus than men.
Yeah.
Men
oh
don't
yeah,
have to
definitely.
focus.
Exactly.
As well, to climax in particular, but
really exactly.
Well, and you were talking about, like those that are not parents, or even people maybe they're not married, like whatever, like being interested in this book. I remember driving for Uber and having singles in the back seat, and they would ask me, about how long have you been married, and I, tell them that, and then I have kids, and they would have so many questions, and it was so funny because especially like these like young college women who were there, and like they're like, wait, you can do this or you're doing that. Like, wow, that's amazing. And like they're getting all this interesting information. But on top of that, too, like some of them were just like, yeah, like I'm just very curious about what a healthy marriage looks like, what healthy parenthood looks like, because they didn't grow up with any of those examples of what that is.
Right.
You know, they're like, I don't even know the first thing of how to communicate with, you know, a boyfriend, let alone a husband, because I didn't have an example to go off of. And so when there's books like DILF out there, or there's books that are out there about what, you know, marriages look like and things like that, like that's, you're going to have sort of that outside demographic. It's like, it's not somebody who's actually in that stage. It's somebody who's considering, do I want to even step into that stage?
Yes, exactly. And I think, you know, I think that brings up another myth that comes up a lot in the DILF handbook, is good parents always put their kids' needs first. And I think that is actually a dangerous myth that can really hurt intimacy and connection. Because if you're always putting your kids' needs first, you're never thinking about your own needs. And at the end of the day, you know, similar to the mast that comes down, you know, as the plane's going down, you have to take care of yourself first, or you're no good to anyone else. I think that that's a big part of sexually. You have to make sure you're thinking about your own needs. But also, and just as importantly, we have to find ways to not overburden ourselves to the extent that we can't even enjoy life anymore, right? We can't feel pleasure. We can't think beyond the day-to-day tasks that are bogging us. You know?
Well, and you're going to get to a point too where, you know, if you're putting the kid in that much of front of everything else, when that time is done, like the one thing that my wife and I always told us was like, we're not going to put our kids in this situation where it's like all about them, because I don't want to look beside and see you and be like, oh, hey, who are you? Like, and totally forget that, because
and it's a 20-year trip. You're going to change so much in that time. You need to be with your partner, and you go, oh, okay, so you like, I don't know, you like corn now. You never ate corn before. That's cool. That's a bad example, but those things that change about.
Go back a few episodes, you'll understand that comment. Right? No, you got to go back a few episodes.
Corn sponsorship.
Yeah. But the reality of us changing as we go along, and we're supposed to. I mean, that's what life is. But like you said, I don't want to be at the end of this run. I mean, we've been together over 20 years, and we've still got at least another 10 to go with kids. And I don't want to be at the end of that. And like you said, go, oh, hey, what do you do now? Who are you? What's going on? Are we still together? And while a lot of couples do have that synergy, they can stick together through all of it. Like you said, you have to let yourself be important in that. You have to, and what I always say is self-care is best care, period. You have to step back to that point where you go, oh, yeah, I'm taking care of everything here, but I need time. We need time. Make a date. You know, Brock and I have talked about that a lot, and we both, I think, still do it. I know I do. You have a date once a week, or however often you can, even if it's once a month. But beyond that, sitting down and going over the logistics and the difficulties and the obstacles, just sitting down with your partner who you fell in love with, who was probably your best friend for a very long time, and not letting your kids' lives overwhelm that relationship.
So you forget what brought you together in the first place.
Right. And a date, by the way, could just be going grocery shopping together without the kids is a date. Like it could,
I mean, a date could be playing cards or a board game once your kid goes to sleep. It's about
totally true. Yep.
You know, we talk so much about, you know, this concept of a freedom shift. You know, I've been talking about that for a while through DILF, but we go into detail on freedom shifts, and it's a term I coined, I don't know, 5 years ago, but we talk about it in so much detail in the You Will Never Sleep Again chapter. And it's because of this concept that everyone needs at least one freedom shift a week, right? And it's a night off or a morning off or time off for you to do whatever the heck you want without having to justify it to anyone.
Right.
And it's a time for you to kind of reconnect with yourself so you can come back refreshed. But it only works if you also allow your partner a freedom shift. And then you should do a joint freedom shift, which is a date night, right?
Yeah. Nice.
And like basically that's 3 times per week. If you do that weekly business meeting once a week, that allows 6 other days. One of them is a freedom shift for you. One of them is a freedom shift for your partner. One of them is a date night. And it's a little structured, but within that, you have a lot of freedom, and
Yeah.
it's important, to think about the difference between this is TMI, but we talk a lot about mind numbing versus mind calming.
Ooh, yeah.
And it's very important that when you take your freedom shift, you don't waste it by doom scrolling the entire time, or just by going to a bar and drinking. It's about finding activities that bring you back to yourself. Connection with your body, connection with your mind, connection with a friend. Something that really gets you out of your head.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Definitely.
I do want to say, and I actually meant to bring this up earlier, but we've had such a great conversation, and that's what I love. And I knew, Kevin, we've talked before, and I know you're a lot like me and a lot like Brock, where if you let me go, I'm just going to go, and we'll have all the information we need, right? And we love that, especially I think as a host of a podcast with a guest. The guest knows their material, but is also passionate about it and going to talk about it. But I wanted to talk about one thing real quick, which we've kind of bounced around, and it's, I think, in the very first chapter, about how parenthood involves, I'm not reading it, more than child rearing, and those neglected areas are what this book intends to highlight, focusing on 3 universal themes crucial to every parent. And it's the significance of building a strong support system, how advocating for your needs actually benefits your entire family, and why the health of your relationship with your co-parent matters as much as the act of parenting itself. And I will say, I love the myths. They are all fantastic, but that specific paragraph really, really sank home to me what this book offers, because this is something that Brock and I and the National at Home Dad Network talks about all the time. We believe that every man needs a mentor and a men's group. You need that support network. You need people to tell you, well, wait, what do I do now? How do I handle this? Whatever it might be, car repairs to diaper changes to temper tantrums. We need somebody we can ask. And then advocating for your own needs and how beneficial it is for your family. That self-care just keeps you able to keep moving, to keep going, and then enriches it and builds into that third point about how very important that relationship is. And I think if anybody gets anything out of this book, understanding those 3 principles, I think is life-changing. I've seen how very effective it's been for other dads that I've known and we've talked to on the show and just in person. And it's amazing that you really just boiled it all down to those 3 points. And I really, really appreciate that was in the book. Sincerely.
Thank you so much. I think that one thing that was cool, there's a cool article that came out in Forbes, which nowadays, people don't write articles on books, right? People don't really do reviews anymore. So it was a very cool thing that Forbes did a whole piece on the book.
Neat.
And what was cool about it, we can put, hopefully, maybe we could put a link in the notes. But what was cool about it was how they highlighted the fact that at the end of the day, all of these chapters and all of these themes consistently come back to those 3 messages. And at the end of the day, it is so important that we realize that there's a ton of books out there about how to take care of your partner. And there's a ton of books about how to take care of your kid. And everything we're told as a dad is how you support your partner. And always it's your pregnant partner. And a lot of people like surrogacy, adoption, like it's just not 2026. So there's not books that really acknowledge the real world anymore. Same-sex couples, anything. But aside from that, there's no books out there that talk about how to take care of yourself and improve your mental health as a dad or as the non-birthing parent. And I feel like that's where this book came from. And it's this concept of it's not a replacement for other parenting books. It's a secondary complementary piece that is missing from the equation. And it's all about how to improve your mental health and be the best person you could be for yourself so that you could better support your partner and your children.
Right.
And your own mental well-being.
Love it. Love it.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with us.
I feel like we just talked that we touched the tip of the iceberg.
I know.
Yeah, we could.
But
go
you know
for
what
4
though?
hours.
That just keeps it. That's the salivation of it all for people to actually go out.
Leave them wanting
and
more.
Get the book, because the book is available on Amazon. Are there other places? You mentioned something about TikTok influencers eventually having it in their shops, but I mean, is there a specific website outside of Amazon that people should go to, or can they find it physically out there in the wild too?
You could go to dadidliketofriend.com and there's a book page there. It's available, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, all those places, and it will be available through TikTok soon. And the sales benefit Dad Supporting Dads, the nonprofit. And I should mention that one of the biggest things we're doing with the funds from this book is we're building out a resource hub through Dad Supporting Dads. And that's something we're really excited about. A resource hub that can list, a non-competitive resource hub. There's so much in the parenting world and in the dad world that's all about us versus them. And I think that it's such an important thing to be able to have a hub that showcases an array of positive resources for dads, from podcasts to books to articles to groups, and to show all those resources. So we're working on building that out. And that's what Dad Supporting Dad's website is going to be even more of. We have this very robust WhatsApp group, with almost 3,000 dads across the country, but we want to supply a lot more resources. So that's what we're building.
No, that's great. Yeah, definitely. And I think that this is definitely going to be a resource that I'm hoping that my library will have on its shelves. So that's the other thing that I'm excited to do, is to be able to go in and request it, because that's one thing you can do at a lot of libraries if they don't have something like that, is to say, hey, like, this is actually a really good book. You should check it out. Like, and hopefully get it on the shelves for other dads and locally to be able to grab that way.
Yeah, please request it at your local libraries and bookstores, because the world has changed and they don't just automatically go to bookstores anymore. They need people to request them.
Definitely.
Libraries the same way.
Well, hey, again, thanks for coming on the show. I am looking forward to continuing on conversations about what's in this book as the year goes on, because I feel like it hits really well with a lot of our community, with dads in different ways. Honestly, hopefully we can have you back on again at some point too. I know that you're also looking into what it would look like to come to Chicago for Home Dad Con. So hopefully that's something as well, because I think that you definitely have a large place to be able to come into there and speak to a lot of dads who this book would also benefit. So yeah, hopefully we get to see you there as well.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yeah, definitely. We'll talk to everybody next week. We hope you have a good one.
Good night, everybody.
That's what I do.